to this discussion. So this is a meeting of the Tuesday night chanting group online. And on the first Tuesday of every month, we have an open-ended discussion, which who knows what we'll talk about tonight. So that's what we're doing. Now, we're going to talk about Buddhist chanting or anything else that's related to Buddhism and or chanting. So who's got something they want to talk about? Zach does.
Sure. At the Furnace Mountain Zen Center, they chant the mantra of the Diamond Sutra Gatha. Do you know, do you practice that at all yourself, or do you have anything you can elaborate on with that, or any insights from that Gatha?
Yeah, so that's a I don't do that. It's a cool chant, and the way that they do it at Furnace Mountain is, well, sometimes they just do it. So it goes, so you should view this fleeting world: a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. Which is a very good little thing to have in your head, and it's considered to be I would say that I consider it to be, and I'm not the only one, a very profound and important teaching in Mahayana Buddhism. On Well, and so here's a good question. What does that mean? What is the point of saying that? So one of the things that some teachers emphasize is the importance of viewing everything that we experience as like a dream. And what does that mean? So, I mean, that isn't exactly the question that you asked, but I think that that's the point of that practice, is to, and I'll just say, great Korean Zen master Chinol said, when you're chanting, don't just make the sounds, contemplate the meaning, and which is, but. Let me just say one other thing, that if you know what the meaning is of what you're chanting, then you don't really have to contemplate it. You can just do the practice, which is just to chant it, especially if you're at a group in a retreat. We just go, now we're chanting this, now we're chanting that, whatever, But my experience is that if you do that a lot, then there will be times when it's like you're hearing it for the first time. Or, when you really, and it's always a mistake to think that you really, really, now I get it. But when you get some real insight, and that is catalyzed by the practice of chanting it. Anyway, but what do you think, Zach? What do you think is so? There's other images that are involved in that. Listen, and also Zen Master Degak has his own kind of version of it, which is listen to this fleeting world: a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom in a dream. So his addition is to listen instead of just, so you should view. So listen to this fleeting. What do you think of that practice, Zach?
I think you touched on a lot of the good things, that at least the understandings that I've conceptualized. I think in me, the Diamond Sutra Gatha is a good reminder of the illusory nature of the skandhas. I think to chant it is a good way for me to at least channel the awareness of kind of the absolute nature. things in some way to look at that. But I'm still learning too. So the Diamond Sutra, I think we do on the mountain. Sometimes they just will chant it, and sometimes they'll add a flair to it, which is
Hmm.
interesting. It kind of breaks it away from the knowing of what it should be or what it is or has been. I think that was kind of cool. But the it's interesting to I've read various texts on the Diamond Sutra itself. One in particular, translated by Red Pine, talks kind of at the end of how potentially even the Diamond Sutra Gatha being like um, perhaps not even related to the Diamond Sutra itself. In some ways, it could be like a goodbye from the Buddha at the end of that sermon. I think there was another sutra that he talks and says the same thing at the end, but I could be mistaken. It's interesting. It's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Hmm. It is. It is beautiful. Yeah. Which is one thing I think is quite important about it is that it's saying the world is impermanent, and that impermanence points to the what Buddhists call the ultimately empty nature of all phenomena. But at the same time, most of the images that are used are quite beautiful and poetic, and um, uh, yeah. But do you want to say anything, Elizabeth, about the Diamond Sutra or emptiness or impermanence?
Well, that's what we chant. Like in the Heart Sutra is the
Mm-hmm.
main focus of that. So then that little short gata is more like romantic uh, or you know poetic kind of. But we don't usually do it. But then again, I guess you always do the Diamond Sutra in that period of time between the two sutras on once a month on the sutra reading. Are you still doing the Diamond Sutra in Korean during that period?
Uh, I have been doing it, just playing the recording of it and chanting along with it.
Yeah.
But the, uh, no, I didn't do it this month.
It's a lot, but
Yeah, and I found that I
so
kind of need a break
yeah.
during that day, the 3 to 8, the once a month when we do the sutra reading together.
That's a challenging one. Not only chanting the whole Diamond Sutra, but in Korean
Mm-hmm.
or Sino-Korean. So
Mm-hmm.
um yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So, um, oh yeah, what? Um, oh yeah. Well, so one of the things that always strikes me as really fascinating is that the Diamond Sutra is um, really impenetrable as a sutra, just totally impenetrable. There's no funny stories in it, um, and I prefer sutras that have funny stories in them personally, um, and 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 you can or and it's kind of it's a little relentless, uh, and I would even say one sided in its emphasis on emptiness and impermanence. Um, which so if there was there, I there some sutras you could say if we only had this sutra, all of Buddhist teaching could be you know then understood by way of that sutra. I would question whether or not that's true of the Diamond Sutra, personally. And that probably is just a reflection of my own lack of understanding of the Diamond Sutra, but I'm still going to stick to that for now. As opposed to like the Heart Sutra and and the Vimalakirti Sutra, The Vimalakirti Sutra is a little longer. The Heart Sutra is quite a bit shorter than the Diamond Sutra. So I would say that the reason why I say that the Heart Sutra in particular is more well-rounded than the Diamond Sutra is that the Heart Sutra is more well-rounded than the Diamond Sutra, in my opinion. And again, this is probably just a reflection of my limited understanding of them. But the Heart Sutra begins and ends with teachings that are actually quite positive, and are not. So the middle part of the Heart Sutra is what usually gets people's attention, and it's the part of the Heart Sutra where it's the mu part of the Heart Sutra. Mu. There's no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no cause, no this, no that, no nothing. And but at the beginning of the Heart Sutra, we chant that Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, while practicing deeply the Prajnaparamita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is saved from all suffering and distress. And so that is a very dualistic, goal-oriented type of teaching. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practiced, while practicing deeply the Prajnaparamita, as a result of that practice, perceived that all five skandhas are empty, and as a result of that, was saved from all suffering and distress. And then Shariputra is addressed directly by Avalokiteshvara, and it's not. In my opinion, that's what's going on in the Heart Sutra, but some people think it's not. It's nowhere stated who's speaking at what time in the Heart Sutra in the way that we do it. There's a longer version that Tibetans use, but I prefer the one that we use. I like it, but right after that, right after this kind of gore, this non-dualistic in the sense of, you do something and you get a result, and then as a result of that you get a further result, you attain something, and then Shariputra is addressed, and one explanation of why Avalokiteshvara at that point addresses Shariputra is because in the Mahayana sutras, Shariputra is portrayed as a non-Mahayana practitioner, as an arhat, as someone whose goal and practice is limited to individual enlightenment. And there's a backstory about Shariputra that he at one time in a past life, many lifetimes ago, had been on the Bodhisattva path with the goal of becoming a Buddha, not just an arhat, but a Buddha, not just an arhat. I mean, for me it would be I'm nowhere close to being an arhat, to say the least. But in Mahayana Buddhism, it's definitely taught that arhatship is a noble and amazing accomplishment, but that and in fact this is also taught in Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhists acknowledge that Buddhahood is higher than arhatship, although they usually don't like it when people say that, but they acknowledge that the point, as a general rule, of the practice of Theravada Buddhism is not the attainment of Buddhahood. It's to be, and that the Buddha's disciples, according to the Theravada Buddhist view, that they attained arhatship, and that was their goal, and that was what the Buddha was teaching people to enable them to do. Anyway, but in Mahayana Buddhism, we believe that the Buddha taught people to enable them to do what he did, to become Buddhas, and to do it the same way that he did, which was by going on the Bodhisattva path, with the end goal of becoming Buddhas to save all beings. And so the backstory, one explanation of what's really going on behind the scenes in the Heart Sutra is that Shariputra in a past life had been on, for many lifetimes had been on the Bodhisattva path, but had become discouraged. And the story of how he became discouraged is actually quite interesting, but not that it's not he became discouraged because he became convinced that he was actually practicing compassion and had actually made some progress in practicing compassion, but he didn't see the results that he had hoped. And in particular, he did not receive positive feedback from the people that he was helping, which is par for the course. Just ask any doctor, just ask, anybody who's in a helping profession, ask any teacher or anybody else who goes out of their way to try to help people. Do people appreciate it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So Shariputra had become discouraged and had reverted to the Shravakayana path. And so Avalokiteshvara, this is the point at which Avalokiteshvara was helping Shariputra to come back onto the Mahayana Buddhist path. And that's why at this point she or he, whatever, turns to Shariputra, and Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. And so that now she starts teaching Shariputra and us about emptiness, not in order to encourage him to return to the path of the Bodhisattva path, which is the word compassion never appears in the Heart Sutra. And part of the reason for that is because, well, if you understand it, the Heart Sutra is being taught by Avalokiteshvara, who is the Bodhisattva of compassion, then, its compassion is being taken for granted, but it's it should be obvious. And so how do you develop compassion? And, anyway, so, oh yeah. So, and then it gets in. So even as the Heart Sutra transitions into all this teaching on emptiness and mu, it is, if you look at it from the perspective of this backstory with Shariputra, it is in order to encourage Shariputra and us in our aspiration to be bodhisattvas, which again, the aspiration to be bodhisattvas is to help others, save all beings, which is an important which is an extremely important thing to have as a ground on which the teachings of compassion have to be understood on that basis, on that ground. Without which the teachings of emptiness are just that nothing matters. And so anyway, and so then at the end of so after all of the know this, know that, know nothing, no attainment and nothing to attain, almost immediately after that, the Heart Sutra states, all Buddhas attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which many people always notice that, and it's supposed to be noticed. You're supposed to say, wait a minute, I thought you said there was no attainment and nothing to attain. And so if your understanding of no attainment and nothing to attain is incompatible with all Buddhas attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, then you're stuck on the words. Which is, the Heart Sutra doesn't explain how to square that circle, but it's there. It's a problem that's set for us to work out ourselves. And then the rest of the Heart Sutra after that doesn't stop. Is very positive, And it goes on and it literally sings the praises of the Heart Sutra itself, and in particular the Heart Sutra mantra is the great bright mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra that relieves all suffering and is true, not false. And you cannot get more dualistic than the statement that something is true and not false. Anyway, so, but and I got started on that because I was contrasting it with the Diamond Sutra, which is mostly just the middle part of the Heart Sutra. All the no stuff, all the emptiness. And that's why, in my opinion, maybe someone can convince me that I'm wrong. Maybe someone can point out where the Diamond Sutra has... well, actually, the Diamond Sutra begins with... yeah, I'm not going to go too far out on a limb here. I think, if I remember correctly, that the Diamond Sutra begins with a request to the Buddha to teach about how to cultivate bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, which is the aspiration to bodhicitta, which is shorthand for, being on the bodhisattva path. To have bodhicitta means that you are on the bodhisattva path. And I'm pretty sure that that's how the Diamond Sutra begins. And so just, even though in translations of the Diamond Sutra it never says that. It doesn't say bodhicitta. It says the spirit of awakening, the mind of awakening, the Buddha Gnosis. Buddha Gnosis is, what's his name? Robert Thurman's translation of bodhicitta, which I think is arguably the worst translation that there is, although there's a lot of competition for that. Anyway, but the point is that all of these images of emptiness in the Diamond Sutra Gatha are very pretty, and they're not meant to say that everything that we perceive doesn't really exist, even though sometimes teachers say that in just those words. But then they'll also always say something like, all Buddhas attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. There's always the other side of it. What do you think about that, Zach?
Do you have any encouragement to square the circle as you described it? To not get stuck on the words?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a whole book about this. He has a different approach to it than I do. But he thinks that the way that the way that the Heart Sutra is the way that we have received the Heart Sutra by tradition is not correct teaching, and that it needs to be corrected. And so he wants to explicitly square the circle in it. And he, I forget where he says the problem is. He has a very specific theory about where he thinks the problem is in the Heart Sutra that doesn't adequately, but he still, he doesn't, in other places he uses the image of a poisonous snake and says that sometimes the Dharma is like a poisonous snake, and if you grab it the wrong way, then it'll bite you. Which is a pretty interesting way of describing the Dharma. But if you look at how people misinterpret and misuse the teachings on emptiness, he's absolutely right. People do misinterpret the teachings on emptiness as a license to not care. People do misinterpret the teachings on emptiness as a license to not study Buddhism. Oh, it's all empty. People misinterpret the teachings on emptiness as a license to not practice at all, because there is nothing to attain. Because any idea of practicing with the idea of attaining something is, dualistic. So don't do it. So he's absolutely right that it is open to misinterpretation. And so he wrote, I forget what the name of the book. It's his book on the Heart Sutra, but he believes that it is not just a matter of explaining or interpreting the Heart Sutra, but of rewriting it, which is what he's done what he does in that book. Which I disagree with his rewriting of the Heart Sutra, for what that's worth, but I agree with his motivation. That people do get the wrong end of the snake.
Yeah, I think he leans. I've read this book, and I remember less of it than I would like for this conversation. But I think he leans heavily in the skillful means category to justify kind of how he presents. I think he even points out that it's somewhat controversial, especially in like some of the traditional teaching.
Right. Well, it's very controversial. So for one thing, among Zen practitioners, not just in the West, but also in Asia, among Zen practitioners, to even talk about it is controversial. Is considered bad form. Oh no, you can't explain it. You can't talk about it. You can't put it into words, which is, I mean, it's true to a certain extent, but I think most of what Thich Nhat Hanh, well, I think all of what Thich Nhat Hanh has to say about it is extremely important to listen to, and to understand what he's getting at. And this is the same teachers who say, "Oh, you can't explain it in words," are always working on their next book. And
yeah.
So, or their next podcast or whatever. Whether their book gets published or not, or anybody listens to their podcast. But I mean, the Buddha used lots of words, and
the dualism that you mentioned in the Heart Sutra. And Elizabeth, please chime in if you want.
Yeah.
Dominate the conversation by any means. But you talked a little bit about how the dualism is meant to be seen in the Heart Sutra. Can you elaborate, since that the dualism is trying to point us toward?
Yeah. Yeah, so I tried to dodge that, didn't I? I said, well, it's just the Heart Sutra just wants to, leave it there. It wants to make sure that we see it and then try to work it out for ourselves, which I think ultimately is what you've got to do. But
perfect.
At the same time, though, well, I mean, that's true of if you study any ordinary subject, ordinary like not Buddhist subject, if you study a foreign language, or if you study mathematics, or if you study carpentry or anything, the teachers can show you and explain it and everything, but you have to do it yourself. And you say, well, how do I know if I know how to saw a straight line? Well, it if you can saw a straight line. How do I know if I understand French grammar? Well, it if you can speak French grammatically.
Right.
And in a math class, in any good math class, when you take a test, you'll always be required to show your work. You can't just write down the answer. You have to, and really the most important part in a math test is your demonstration of how you got the answer. Because it's the most important part, because on the one hand, if you just put down the bare answer, you'll get no credit. On the other hand, if you have the correct reasoning up until the last step and then make a mistake, you'll get partial credit, which saved me in all the math classes I ever took. But the explanation shows that you understand. what's happening, right? And so, yeah, now I've lost my train of thought. But
Well,
it,
I think in many ways too, this also talks about, it's also kind of answers the other question, right? Where, maybe that is the importance of the experience of it.
yeah,
Words being part of that, as well as you can explain and explain and explain and explain until you're blue in the face, but until you experience, like
yeah,
you said, you got to go learn how to saw a straight line before you can know you can saw a straight line.
right. And the explanation, hopefully, this is what the teachers hope, and this is what the students who are listening to the teacher also hope, is that the explanations will help. They will help you to get to the point where you can see it for yourself and do it
Right.
for yourself. And you can take a saw and a piece of wood, and I'm putting shelves up in my garage right now. So I'm working. I'm putting shelves up in our garage right now, and I'm doing it with the handsaw. I'm not out of, if you start Googling or going to YouTube and looking for, how do you saw a straight line with the handsaw, you'll find a lot of people who talk about using Japanese, I forget what it's called. There's a certain handsaw. Anyway, I mean, people get very into it. I'm just doing it because I don't have a circular saw or any of that stuff, and I do want to put some shelves up in my garage, and I'm too cheap and lazy to go to the trouble of getting all the equipment that people normally use. But yeah, but it is helpful. You can get help. You can also get people who just like to hear themselves talk, or people who have their own theories about this is the correct way to saw a straight line. You have to do it this way or whatever. But you can, just by listening to different people's explanations, you can learn, oh, this is what they're talking about. This is the kind of things that you have to. These are the problems that you'll encounter, and these are some solutions that might work. But I have to find out for myself, you know, um, and I'll know, when if I can put the shelves up in my garage and they don't fall down and they're level and they don't look, terrible. I mean, it's just my garage, so so they don't have to look too great. But um, yeah, getting explanations and guidance, no one can do it for you. Someone can put shelves up in your garage for you if you pay them, but then you have to accept the way they did it. Um, I think I've gotten enough mileage out of the shelves in my garage story. Um, but but one other thing about the Diamond Sutra that's really, really interesting. Diamond Sutra has played a tremendous role in the history of Zen, and also in the mythology of Zen, which many people think of as the history of Zen, but most of it is not particularly well documented. But chanting the Diamond Sutra is a really big deal in popular Buddhism in China, and all of East Asia. Um, Talked to a friend of mine who's Korean, who's a Buddhist, and I was talking to her about the Diamond Sutra. And there's in her village, there's a monk, or not a monk, a nun, who she's not part of from what I understand, she's not part of a monastery. She was trained, but she just lives, by herself on the outskirts of the village, and she just chants the Diamond Sutra, and then people come to her house like on weekends, and chant along with her, and that's a thing and of course people do it, to as part of their practice as bodhisattvas along the bodhisattva path to become enlightened in order to save all beings. But people also do it because it's believed that chanting this Diamond Sutra is extremely beneficial. Beneficial for your health, beneficial for your family life, beneficial for your mental health, your health and well-being, beneficial for your financial well-being, um, and and of course, it doesn't get more dualistic than chanting for money.
No
Right?
kidding.
But, one of the things that we do every month on usually the first Saturday of the month, is chant the Medicine Buddha Sutra. And the Medicine Buddha Sutra is very upfront. It has all kinds of things you can do, all kinds of lamps and banners and altars and practices that you can engage in. And it says in the Medicine Buddha Sutra that people who engage in these practices will get whatever they wish for. And then it says, including, it doesn't just leave it up to your imagination. It says, including, good jobs. What is it? It says specifically, children, if you want children, and I don't know, any other health. And of course, it's the Medicine Buddha, so people especially chant to the Medicine Buddha for good health. Long life, live a long life.
Mm.
And you want long life and good health, because you don't want just one or the other. You don't want to be healthy and then die suddenly, and you also don't want to live a long time but be in bad health. So Medicine Buddha is supposed to help you with both of those things. Also, it's good to have some money. The longer you live, you don't want to run out of money. Yeah. In fact, I mean, it's very clear in the Medicine Buddha Sutra. Is actually a wonderful practice to read it, recite it, and makes it very clear. Medicine Buddha wants us to be happy, wants us to be healthy, wants us to be successful in our lives, and also wants us to be just like him. And that's the Medicine Buddha's first vow, is he wants to enable all sentient beings to become just like him, which means to be bodhisattvas and to become, fully enlightened Buddhas who work for the benefit of all beings. But yeah, the Diamond Sutra is viewed as essentially as a magical practice. And part of the success of the Zen school in East Asia is due to its close identification with the miraculous powers of the Diamond Sutra. And the sixth ancestor of Zen, Huineng, in the Platform Sutra, tells his own story, miraculous story, in association with the Diamond Sutra. He was just walking along the road one day and heard the Diamond Sutra being recited and had a great awakening. And then went and asked the monk who was chanting the Diamond Sutra to explain it to him. And the monk said, "I can't explain it to you. I just chant it. You have to go talk to my teacher," who was the fifth ancestor, Hung Ren. But Huineng couldn't do that because he lived with his mother, and they were very poor. And it just wasn't, in the cards. He wasn't going to abandon his mother. And then the next day, someone came up to Huineng and gave him money and said, "Here, use this to support your mother." So that's the great awakening that Huineng experienced when he heard the Heart Sutra being recited, and he didn't understand it because he went and asked the monk for the explanation. That was the first miracle. The second miracle was being able to support his mother, so that then he could go and get the explanation of the Diamond Sutra. Did I say Heart Sutra? Diamond Sutra from Hung Ren, which he did. I like that story about the Diamond Sutra. Diamond Sutra is also the Diamond Sutra in the Zen tradition is understood. The way that the story of the Diamond Sutra is presented in the Zen tradition checks off some very important boxes for ordinary average Buddhists. One, it will you'll get money, and actually first you'll get it. First you'll have great awakenings and profound and will help you on your path. Also you'll get money, and also it will support you if you are a good filial son you will be assisted in your desire to support your family. So you should view this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble and a stream, a flash of lightning and a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom and a dream. And so that's, you can count them. And actually, there's actually different versions of the Diamond Sutra that have different lists in there. And the one that we use, I forget which translator was, but so you should view this fleeting world: a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning and a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom and a dream. The 6 things. Yeah, there's other lists include shadows. There's no shadows in that list. There's what are other good?
Drop of dew.
A drop
grass.
of dew.
Yeah,
Drop of dew on the grass. Yes, that's a nice poetic one. Oh, clouds. There's no clouds, or no. There's a flash of lightning in the summer sky, but there's no clouds. There can be clouds too. You got any metaphors for emptiness, Elizabeth, that you can think of, or not?
Oh, maybe a breeze.
A breeze. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, a nice breeze. I love that. I love a good breeze through the trees. It sounds so hippie, but yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Thich Nhat Hanh in a lot of his teachings makes a big deal about the Buddha. But the Buddha liked to use, and not just necessarily as a metaphor for emptiness, but as a metaphor for the Dharma in general. A cool breeze. Cool breezes are especially in places like India and Vietnam. A nice cool breeze is very welcome.
I grew up in Florida. It's just not distinctly not that level of tropical, but it's close. I get it.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why Thich Nhat Hanh emphasizes the metaphor of the cool breeze is because, and he uses that in talking about the experience of meditation, and in particular the experience that Shakyamuni Buddha had when he left the path of asceticism and took up the middle way. That then he experienced meditation like a cool breeze. It was no longer something unpleasant, which up until then, his practices had been for 6 years intentionally unpleasant. Which is not.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It is a good story. Yeah, Thich Nhat Hanh's telling of the whole life of the Buddha is actually quite nice. I used to think that it was too simplistic or too almost like, I hate to admit this, but I used to think that I used to even say this to people. That I think Thich Nhat Hanh, he's like the Fred Rogers of Buddhism, you know.
I've heard that a lot, actually. That exact thing.
It's dismissively, yeah. But it was actually when I was reading his, when I actually read it again more closely, yeah, I realized I was wrong about that. I mean, or I was wrong about Fred Rogers.
I like Fred Rogers.
Yeah.
I think, Old Path, White Clouds is a good read. Read that. Need to read it again soon. I think it's worth another read.
And one thing that he does in that, which I think is unique in the all the different versions and tellings of the Buddha's life story, is that, and I think I'm getting this right. He has the Buddha, after he discovers the middle way of meditation that is pleasant, the Buddha then continues to meditate in that way for 6 months before he attains his great awakening. And usually it's either stated explicitly or implied that it happened much more quickly than that. The Buddha didn't practice meditation very long. He just figured out the right way to do it and then attained enlightenment. But Thich Nhat Hanh has him under that tree for a longer period of time, which I like. Because it's taken me a long time. I mean, not that I've really truly discovered the middle way yet, but
Yeah. Elizabeth, if you don't mind sharing, what is your kitty cat's name?
His name was Xavier.
Good name, Xavier. Looks like a good kitty cat.
Xavier was a good cat. Well,
He was, I mean, he was a very unusual cat, but he was lovable.
It's kind of a desired quality in cats I've had over the years, actually. I have a few they cuddle. They're nice. They're always nice. A couple, the little quirks are what stands out. I don't know if I have any more questions on the diamonds. I'm sure I'll think of them 10 minutes after the meeting ends. I usually do.
oh, well, let me. Please blurt it out if you have anything, but I'm looking up something right now.
The sheer amount of books that the Plum Village tradition seemingly has put out on various topics is kind of hard to avoid. I've read a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah, so he has a book called Thundering Silence, and that's the one where he really introduces and explains this metaphor of the correct way of holding a snake.
You said Thundering Silence.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's it. You can...
Any must-reads that beginner you would recommend?
Well, so his I don't know if he has a full translation of it, but his commentary on the Vimalakirti Sutra is also quite good. Oh yeah.
I found a free translation of the Avatamsaka Sutra, and I've been kind of trying to read through that. The story of Sudana and going through the Bodhisattva path has always been pretty interesting.
So another really cool thing about Thich Nhat Hanh's retelling of the life of the Buddha is that one of his most famous teachings, which he has a whole separate book on, is the Tangerine of Mindfulness, which is the story that he tells to the children who gather with him for a little picnic lunch the day after he attains enlightenment. And that is Thich Nhat Hanh's version of the Avatamsaka Sutra, actually. And what he has the Buddha teach in the teaching that the Buddha gives while still, and that's where the Avatamsaka Sutra was taught, was while the Buddha was still seated under the Bodhi tree. Usually it's said that the first teaching the Buddha gave was the teaching on the Four Noble Truths in the Deer Park, but that was actually later. Yeah, it's very it's very sneaky the way that Thich Nhat Hanh slips the Avatamsaka Sutra in there, even though he, for the most part, ends his telling of the story of the Buddha before the Buddha, pretty soon after enlightenment, and he bases it only mostly on Pali sources, and of course he is a Mahayana Buddhist teacher and puts his own Mahayana Buddhist teaching in there, but he manages to slip in the Avatamsaka Sutra in a very, very, very nice way.
I had completely missed that when I read it. That's interesting. Worth a reread for that alone, almost, or at least that part.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the Diamond Sutra begins with, so I was just looking. Subhuti. Subhuti asks the Buddha, how should one set out on the Bodhisattva path? And this is one that differs a lot from one translation to another. How should the Bodhisattva begin their path, and how should the Bodhisattva control the mind? And so I've looked into, I don't remember off the top of my head at all. I'd have to look at it again. What the original for that? What are they talking about? Control the mind. It's not a phrase that you run into in just those words very often. There's a lot of Buddhist teaching, of course, about training the mind. Train, control. It's kind of the same thing, but training sounds a little less controlling.
A little less aggressive. Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
Can you hear my chair creaking when it creaks a little bit? Yeah.
Yep.
Gotta fix that.
Doesn't bother me.
Well, it's distracting to me when I move a little bit in my chair and it creaks.
Yeah.
Well, it's about
I've watched it.
What's that? Was that you what?
Watched a few of your videos juggling. That's quite entertaining to learn, to see the progress.
Yeah, and the progress is painful. Like I never got very good at juggling when I was in my 30s, but I got better than I am now, and but I'm working on it. It's yeah, juggling is another thing. If you want to learn how to juggle, you can just pick up some juggling balls and have at it, but you can actually learn a lot from other people who have learned how to juggle and can give you some pointers and advice.
When I first went to college, the commencement speaker taught everybody how to juggle in the entire crowd. That was his thing. I'm going to teach everybody how to juggle. Do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's always what that reminds me of.
Yeah, well, I still got a long way to go.
That's good.
Yeah. Goals. 2026 goals.
There you go.
To become less bad at juggling.
Less bad is right. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Elizabeth? Is it time to end? When we practice on Wednesdays and Saturdays, Elizabeth is our timekeeper. She reminds us when it's time. Do you think it's time?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we will. What do you think, Zach?
I think we covered a lot of ground. We did a good job today, I think, with that.
I had a good time.
Me too.
Let's see now. Oh yeah, I'll just make a plug for Thursday morning chanting. If anybody wants to learn how to chant the morning bell chant, or just hear the morning bell chant.
I won't be able to make it this week, but I plan to continue attending that. So thanks for offering it. And it has the Avatamsaka Sutra in it, right?
So the Avatamsaka Sutra is a major theme in the morning bell chant. Yes. Okay.
I'm at work at that time,
Oh,
unfortunately.
yeah.
I might be able to
Yeah, I
book
understand
my
that.
way in.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to share my screen and we'll chant the 4 vows to end. Okay, here we are. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. May whatever excellent qualities we have gained from this practice be extended for the benefit of all beings. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Bye, Elizabeth.
Have a good
Bye,
evening.
Zach. See you soon.
Bye.